Welcome to the Old Monty and a Cup of Joe. Do us a favor and subscribe to the podcast and leave a positive rating and review for us. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get into this.
South Carolina had their game against Old Dominion, and we knew we've heard about Old Dominion being tough, about Old Dominion not being a pushover, and we heard all this week about the win against Virginia Tech, a couple of years ago.
Believe it.
Well, you'd like to think that, yeah, that's great. They're, strong. They're, a fighting, group of kids, and they always play tough. But we'll blow them out. And lo and behold, it wound up not happening that way at all. And it's concerning. We're concerned right now. We're one game in, and it feels like we got a big shoe above us, and we're kind of waiting for it to come down on top of us. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is because as far as South Carolina fans, all off season, there's been a lot of hype around this team because of Lenora Sellers. And we thought coming into this year, we said, hey, this is going to be a special year. We got Nick Harbor at wide receiver. He's a cheat code. I mean, he's the fastest guy, one of the fastest, wide receivers in all of college football, if not the fastest. Lenora Sellers is a huge kid. It's not only big, but he's also strong and fast. And, we've got our offensive line gelling together, and, we're bringing back some guys that, got a little bit of experience. And it's like we just kind of bumbled our way through this game. I don't know exactly where to put my finger at. We only passed for 114 yards, and that's not good when Old Dominion passed for right at 200. And one of our strengths on defense was supposed to be our backfield. And you got Old Dominion that comes out and throws for almost 200 yards in your stadium, and you're telling me that the defensive backfield is one of our strengths. Well, that didn't seem very strong right there. Now, we did do pretty good up front on the line, and we did do good on the edge. They didn't run against us particularly well. They only rushed for 108 yards as a team. But, still, it was a close game. There's a couple of factors in that game that made it interesting. Number one, I think, was the lightning delay. And I hate to blame anything on weather circumstances. South Carolina came out, and right there, off the bat, as soon as Old Dominion gets the ball, we sack them, we're driving them back. We got a fumble right there on the goal line. We go in a few plays later, we score, get the ball back, and Raheem Sanders, he's running over people. He's going crazy. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, in a sunny day at Williams-Brice, lightning delay. And it's like, what in the world? We had basically a full house, right at 80,000 people. Everybody was nuts. Everyone was, going wild. We had all the excitement, all of the hoopla that goes along with college football. And now you got to empty your stadium. So you got to empty your stadium. You got to wait 30 minutes. You got to bring everybody back in. You got to warm the team. And I think it just kind of broke the rhythm. And that's when Old Dominion started chipping away right there. That's when they scored. They made it 7-10 right there in the first quarter. And then everything just kind of stalemated and stagnated. We just pushed each other around, and they took that lead in the third quarter. In the fourth quarter, and things got scary. I mean, we were afraid. It's like, hey, we're about to get beat at home by Old Dominion. Mm-hmm. Luckily, our defense, which is supposed to be the savior of this team, is the defense. They did step up, and we got the ball back, and we were able to put the game away. So yeah, we got the win, but I'm not real confident about how I feel about that win. I'd feel a lot better right now if that was 33-19 or
Yeah,
36.
obviously.
Yeah, and it's not so much our scoring; it's the 19 by Old Dominion that really bothers me. Because if Old Dominion comes into your house and puts 19 on you, and it's basically a one score game in your house, and now you're turning around and you're going to Kentucky, who's had your number the last 6, 7, 8 years. Now you got to go to Lexington, Kentucky. Well, what do you got after that? Then you got to come home and face LSU. So I mean, we could be looking at, what do we, I don't know. We got some other, who's it? I don't even know the schedule anymore, Joe.
Kentucky next week, right?
Kentucky next week. I'm trying to think who we've got after Kentucky. Is it LSU? I can't even remember anymore.
Yeah, you play LSU pretty quick.
Yeah, so it doesn't get any easier for us. So you could be looking at 1 and 2 right there off the bat, and that's not a position that you want to be in at all. Not the SEC, not with the schedule that these guys have to face down the road. So, I don't know. Rushing, we did pretty good. Raheem Sanders finished with 88 yards, and then Lenora Sellers, quarterback, almost he had 68 right there at 70. Receivers, we got one receiver right at 60 yards, but he only had 2 catches. And one of them, one of them was a really long catch and the other one was, short catch. But I don't know. You look at 4 fumbles for Old Dominion and 1 fumble for South Carolina.
Yeah.
They gave you they fumbled the ball 4 times. They lost 2 of them. So they gave you the ball twice, and you still only won by 4 points at home. And when you start to look at it that way, it doesn't look good for what you got coming down the road.
Yeah, you mentioned that momentum change with the lightning delay. I've been through a few of those in Manhattan, and it kind of takes the crowd out of it because everyone has to leave. Everyone's kind of irritated that the game got postponed. Everyone's just hanging around. It's hard to get the fans juiced up again. Like,
Right.
like it's easy to do before the game, before kickoff, and on that first defensive stand, and as if your team scores right away, and the fans are really into it. Then lightning, and then it's like, oh, geez. It's hard to tell how much the effect that really had on things. It sounds like it did have a little bit of effect on it in this game anyway.
It did. Our student section didn't recover as much as we would have liked them to, and it was also just outrageously hot in Columbia that day. Shane Beamer was given his weekly press conference today, and I think he said that was the second hottest game that he's coached in Columbia. So that lets you know. I mean, obviously, late August, early September in Columbia, South Carolina, it's hot. But when you're packed in with 80,000 other people, and then they give you a 30-minute break, you go sit out and maybe grab a cold beverage and get the AC blowing in the car. A lot of those people kind of, I don't know.
Some people probably just left, to be honest.
Sure, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. That's what happened. I mean, once you go out and you get a little taste of that air conditioning, it's like, hey, maybe I'll just go ahead and take this to the house. And at that point in the game, we did have the momentum, and it did appear like South Carolina was about to come out and just flatten them and steamroll them, but that's not what wound up happening, as we see.
Yeah.
So you can't let.
I've been there, done that with other games that I've been at, so but have gone the same way. But
the thing is there that concerns me is great teams or even really good teams. They don't care.
Doesn't matter.
That's not gonna affect them. So that lets me know right there, we're not to that level of being a great team. We're a growing team, and that evidenced itself very much on Saturday. Looking forward to this coming weekend. It's gonna be tough. I think Mark Stoops is. I'm not going to say he's got South Carolina's number, but I mean, if you look at the win-loss here over the past couple of years, he's got South Carolina's number. And so you're going to their house. Luckily, I think that we're pretty healthy, and there might be a couple little nagging little things here and there, but nothing serious. I think we've got all of our starters coming back and key players coming back, so that's good. It's still going to be a tough game, and honestly, I until I have reason to believe otherwise, I would be very surprised to see South Carolina come out of Lexington with a win. Having said that, South Carolina has been one of the most Jekyll and Hyde teams that you can imagine. A couple of years ago, these jokers get beat by a Florida team that they had absolutely no business getting beat by. They were wearing Florida out. They let Florida come back and beat them. And at that point, we're like, well, this is over because now Tennessee and Clemson are going to curb stomp us. And what do? We wind up turning around and hanging 63 on Tennessee, knock them out of the playoff. And then we go to Death Valley, beat Clemson in their home stadium, and knock them out of the playoff. And at that point in time, Clemson and Tennessee were both on the edge of that playoff scenario. They both literally could have made it. That win, when South Carolina beat Tennessee, it knocked them out. And when they beat Clemson the next week, it knocked them out. And that same South Carolina team blew a game against Florida that they had in the bag. So welcome to Gamecock football. This is what you'll see the ride is like. We'll go and we'll lose to a Wofford or an App State or the Citadel, and then we'll turn around and we'll beat a Bama or a Georgia. And it's like, what are you guys doing? But for many years, that's been the mantra of Gamecock football. So we'll have to see, but going to be interesting this weekend up there in Lexington. I'll be pulling for them. Going to be a tough one.
I will be too.